Las Vegas, 1993. The city pulses with light even as the desert night presses against its edges. Inside the casinos, time dissolves. There are no clocks, no windows, only the endless churn of cards and dice and spinning wheels. Illusion is the currency here. The architecture promises fortune. The neon whispers possibility. But beneath the glitter, something darker waits. On the morning of August 14th, a housekeeper at the Stardust Hotel knocks on room 412. No answer. She uses her master key. The door swings open onto stillness. The bed is made. The curtains are drawn. A suitcase sits unopened near the closet. On the nightstand, a wallet lies open, cash and credit cards untouched. But the guest is gone. His name is Michael Brennan, 28 years old, a software engineer from Seattle in town for a weekend getaway. His flight home departed the previous evening. He never boarded. The front desk has no record of checkout. His rental car remains in the hotel garage. His belongings suggest he intended to return. But Michael Brennan has vanished into the city built on disappearing acts. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department opens a missing persons case. Detective Laura Voss takes the lead. She's worked the Strip for 6 years. She knows how easily people lose themselves here. But this feels different. Michael's friends describe him as cautious, responsible. He called his girlfriend every night. The last call came at 11:47 p.m. on August 13th. He said he'd won $200 at blackjack. He sounded happy. He said he'd see her soon. 12 hours later, he's gone. Detective Voss reviews the hotel's security footage. The cameras are old, the resolution poor, but she finds Michael leaving his room at 9:15 p.m. on the 13th. He's wearing a teal and purple patterned shirt, jeans, white sneakers. He takes the elevator down. He walks through the casino floor. He stops at a blackjack table. He plays for 40 minutes. He wins, he cashes out. Then he walks toward the exit. The camera loses him near the front doors. The next camera should pick him up outside, but it doesn't. Michael Brennan steps into the frame and never steps out. Detective Voss pulls footage from neighboring casinos. Nothing. She checks cab companies, bus terminals, rental agencies. No record of Michael leaving the area. It's as if the desert swallowed him whole. The investigation expands. Detectives canvass the Strip. They interview dealers, waitresses, security guards. No one remembers seeing Michael after he left the blackjack table. His girlfriend flies to Las Vegas. She appears on local news pleading for information. Michael's face is printed on flyers distributed across the city. Days pass, then weeks. The case grows cold. Las Vegas is a city of transience. People come and go. Memories fade. The neon keeps flashing. The slot machines keep ringing. Life moves forward. But somewhere in the desert, or buried beneath concrete, or hidden in a place no one thought to look, Michael Brennan remains. And the truth waits with him. For 30 years, the case sits in a file cabinet. Detectives retire. Technology advances. The city changes. The Stardust Hotel is demolished in 2007, imploded in a cloud of dust and memory. But in 2023, a cold case unit reopens Michael's file. New technology offers new possibilities. Old evidence is re-examined, old footage is enhanced, and in the grainy frames of a 1993 security camera, something emerges that no one saw before. A face. A gesture. A moment that changes everything. The truth was always there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to look closely enough. Because in Las Vegas, nothing is ever truly lost. It's only waiting to be found. Michael Brennan grew up in Tacoma, Washington, in a modest split-level house with a view of Mount Rainier. His father worked at the Boeing plant. His mother taught elementary school. Michael was the middle child, quieter than his older brother, more serious than his younger sister. He liked puzzles. He liked systems. He liked understanding how things worked. In high school, he discovered computers. This was the late 1980s, when personal computing was still new, still full of possibility. Michael taught himself BASIC, then C. He spent hours in the school's computer lab, writing code, solving problems. His teachers noticed. They encouraged him. He applied to the University of Washington and was accepted. He studied computer science. He graduated in 1989 with honors. He was hired by a small software company in Seattle that developed database management systems for businesses. He was good at his job, methodical, reliable. He didn't seek attention, but his work spoke for itself. By 1993, he'd been promoted twice. He had his own apartment in Capitol Hill. He had a girlfriend named Sarah, a graphic designer he'd met at a coffee shop. They'd been dating for 8 months. It was serious. They talked about moving in together. Michael wasn't a gambler by nature. He didn't take unnecessary risks. But in August 1993, a co-worker invited him to Las Vegas for a weekend. A group of 4, just for fun. Sarah encouraged him to go. He worked too much, she said. He needed to relax. So Michael booked a flight. He packed a small suitcase. He brought $300 in cash, money he'd set aside for entertainment. He flew into McCarran International Airport on Friday, August 13th at 2:30 p.m. The heat hit him like a wall when he stepped outside. 108 degrees. The air shimmered above the asphalt. His co-workers picked him up. They drove to the Stardust Hotel, a sprawling complex on the Strip, famous for its massive neon sign and old-school Vegas charm. Michael checked into room 412, 4th floor overlooking the pool. He unpacked his suitcase, hung his shirts in the closet, placed his toiletries in the bathroom. Then he met his co-workers downstairs. They spent Friday evening exploring the casino. Michael played a few hands of blackjack. He lost $20. He didn't mind, it was part of the experience. They had dinner at the hotel buffet. Prime rib, shrimp cocktail, endless desserts. They drank beer. They laughed. Michael seemed relaxed, happy. Around midnight, they called it a night. Michael returned to his room. He called Sarah. He told her about the heat, the lights, the absurdity of it all. She laughed. She told him to have fun. She said she loved him. He said he loved her too. Saturday, August 14th. Michael woke early. He went for a run, unusual for him, but the hotel had a fitness center and he wanted to try it. He showered, dressed, met his co-workers for breakfast. They spent the day by the pool. The sun was relentless. Michael wore sunscreen, reapplied it every hour. He wasn't used to this kind of heat. In the evening, they returned to the casino. Michael found a blackjack table with a $5 minimum. He sat down. He played conservatively, following basic strategy, and he started winning. Not huge amounts. $10 here, $20 there. But it added up. By 10:30 p.m., he was up $200. He decided to cash out. He collected his chips, walked to the cashier, exchanged them for bills. He folded the money into his wallet. His co-workers were still playing. Michael told them he was going to walk around, maybe get some air. He left the casino floor. Security footage shows him moving through the lobby. He's alone, he's not in a hurry. He pauses near the front entrance, looking out at the Strip. Then he steps forward, and the camera loses him. That's the last confirmed sighting of Michael Brennan. His co-workers didn't worry when he didn't return. They assumed he'd gone back to his room. They played until 1 a.m., then went to bed. Sunday morning, they knocked on Michael's door. No answer. They called his room. No answer. They went to the front desk. The clerk checked the system. No checkout, no messages. They asked security to open the room. Everything was there. Suitcase, clothes, wallet, cash, credit cards. But Michael was gone. His co-workers called the police. Detective Laura Voss arrived within an hour. She interviewed them separately. Their stories matched. Michael had been in good spirits. No arguments, no strange behavior. She searched the room. No signs of struggle, no blood, no forced entry. The door had been locked from the outside. She reviewed the security footage. She saw Michael leave the casino. She saw him approach the exit, but she didn't see him leave. Las Vegas in 1993 was a city in transition. The old mob-run casinos were giving way to corporate mega-resorts. The Mirage had opened in 1989, ushering in a new era. Treasure Island would open later that year. But the Stardust was old Vegas. It had history. It had secrets. Detective Voss knew the Strip's reputation. People disappeared here. Sometimes they ran away from debts, from marriages, from lives they no longer wanted. But Michael didn't fit that profile. She expanded the search. She contacted hospitals, morgues, jails, nothing. She checked bus and train stations, nothing. She interviewed casino staff, dealers, pit bosses, security guards. No one remembered anything unusual. She pulled footage from every camera in the hotel. Hours and hours of grainy black and white tape. Michael appeared in several frames, playing blackjack, walking through the lobby, entering the elevator. But after he approached the exit, he vanished. Detective Voss stood on the strip at night, staring at the neon, trying to understand. The city roared around her, thousands of people moving in every direction. How does someone disappear in a place with so many eyes? She didn't have an answer. Not yet. The first 48 hours are critical in any missing persons case. After that, the chances of finding someone alive drop significantly. Detective Voss knew this. She worked fast. She organized a grid search of the area surrounding the Stardust. Officers walked the streets, checked alleys, looked in dumpsters. They found nothing. She contacted the Clark County Coroner's Office. No unidentified bodies matching Michael's description had been brought in. She reached out to neighboring jurisdictions: Henderson, North Las Vegas, Boulder City. No reports of anyone matching Michael's appearance. She issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, to all law enforcement agencies in Nevada and neighboring states. She held a press conference. Michael's photo was shown on local news. Tips started coming in. A woman called to say she'd seen someone matching Michael's description at a gas station in Barstow, California. Detectives followed up. The man turned out to be a local resident. A bartender at a downtown casino thought he'd served Michael a drink on Sunday night, but when shown a photo, he wasn't sure. A taxi driver claimed he'd picked up a man matching Michael's description near the Stardust on Saturday night and driven him to the airport. But airport records showed no one named Michael Brennan had checked in for any flight. Every lead evaporated. Sarah arrived in Las Vegas on Tuesday, August 17th. She was 26, with long dark hair and red-rimmed eyes. She hadn't slept since Michael's co-workers called her. Detective Voss met her at the police station. She asked Sarah the difficult questions. Had Michael been depressed? Had he mentioned any problems, any debts, any enemies? Sarah shook her head to everything. Michael was happy. They were happy. He had no reason to disappear. She went on television. She stood in front of the cameras, her voice shaking, and begged for information. If anyone had seen Michael, if anyone knew anything, please come forward. The tips increased, but none led anywhere. Michael's parents flew in from Tacoma. His father was stoic, his mother devastated. They walked the strip, handing out flyers, asking strangers if they'd seen their son. The Stardust management cooperated fully. They provided access to all security footage, all employee records. They offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to Michael's whereabouts. Detective Voss interviewed every employee who'd been working the night Michael disappeared. Dealers, waitresses, valets, security guards, housekeepers. No one had seen anything unusual. She focused on the security footage. The Stardust had dozens of cameras, but the technology was primitive by modern standards. The resolution was low, the frame rate was slow. Large sections of the hotel weren't covered. She watched Michael walk through the casino. She watched him cash out. She watched him move toward the exit. The last clear image showed him near the front doors, looking out at the strip. He's standing still, hands in his pockets. He seems to be thinking. Then he takes a step forward. The next camera should have captured him exiting, but it doesn't. Detective Voss reviewed the footage frame by frame. She looked for technical glitches, for gaps in the recording. She found none. Michael simply wasn't there. She considered the possibilities. He could have turned around, gone back into the casino, but no other camera picked him up. He could have exited through a side door, but those doors were alarmed and monitored. No alarms were triggered. He could have been abducted. But there were people everywhere. Someone would have seen something. Unless it happened so quickly, so smoothly that no one noticed. Detective Voss interviewed the security guards who'd been on duty. 2 men, both experienced, both adamant that nothing unusual had occurred. She asked about blind spots. Were there areas the cameras didn't cover? The head of security admitted there were a few: stairwells, service corridors, loading docks. Detective Voss searched them all. She found nothing. She brought in cadaver dogs. They searched the hotel, the parking garage, the surrounding area. No alerts. She contacted the FBI. Missing persons cases are typically local, but the FBI can assist if there's evidence of foul play or interstate activity. An agent reviewed the case. He agreed it was unusual, but without evidence of a crime, there was little the FBI could do. Detective Voss didn't give up. She re-interviewed Michael's co-workers. She asked about his behavior in the days before the trip. Had he seemed distracted? Worried? They all said the same thing. Michael had been normal, excited about the trip, looking forward to getting away. She spoke to his employer. Michael had no financial problems, no workplace conflicts. He was well liked, respected. She obtained his phone records. The last call he made was to Sarah at 11:47 p.m. on August 13th. It lasted 9 minutes. She obtained his bank records. No unusual transactions, no large withdrawals. She checked his credit cards. The last charge was at the Stardust Buffet on Saturday evening. Everything pointed to a man who had no reason to disappear. But he was gone. Weeks passed. The media attention faded. Other stories took over. Other cases demanded attention. Detective Voss kept working. She reviewed the footage again and again. She walked the strip at night, trying to see what Michael might have seen. She stood where he'd stood, near the exit, looking out at the lights. What had he been thinking? Where had he gone? The desert stretched beyond the city, vast and indifferent. People had been lost in it before. Bodies had been found years later, bones scattered by wind and animals. But Michael had been inside a casino, surrounded by people, watched by cameras. How does someone vanish from a place like that? Detective Voss didn't have an answer. Not yet. By September 1993, the investigation had consumed hundreds of hours. Detective Voss had interviewed over 60 people. She'd reviewed more than 40 hours of security footage. She'd followed up on dozens of tips, and she had nothing. The case was officially classified as a missing persons investigation, but Voss suspected something darker. People don't vanish without a trace unless someone makes them vanish. She began looking at the hotel staff more closely. The Stardust employed over 2,000 people: dealers, pit bosses, waitresses, bartenders, housekeepers, security guards, maintenance workers. Any one of them could have seen Michael. Any one of them could have interacted with him. She requested background checks on every employee who'd been working the night of August 13th. It took weeks. Most came back clean, but 3 had criminal records: minor offenses, theft, assault, drug possession. Voss interviewed them. 2 had solid alibis. The third, a maintenance worker named Roy Hastings, had been off duty that night. She brought him in for questioning. Hastings was 42, thin, with graying hair and nervous hands. He'd worked at the Stardust for 6 years. Voss asked where he'd been on the night of August 13th. Hastings said he'd been home alone. No one could verify it. She asked if he'd ever seen Michael Brennan. Hastings said he didn't recognize the photo. She asked if he'd ever been in trouble at work. Hastings admitted he'd been written up twice for being late. Voss pushed harder. She asked about his criminal record. Hastings became defensive. He said he'd made mistakes, but he'd paid his debt. She asked if he'd been in the casino that night. Hastings insisted he hadn't. Voss had no evidence to hold him. She let him go, but she kept him on her list. She also looked at Michael's co-workers. 3 men, all in their late 20s, all software engineers. They'd known Michael for years. They'd invited him on the trip. Voss interviewed them again, separately. She asked about their relationships with Michael. Any conflicts? Any jealousy? They all said no. Michael was a friend. They were devastated by his disappearance. She asked about their activities on the night of August 13th. They'd been in the casino playing blackjack and craps. Multiple witnesses confirmed it. She asked if they'd seen Michael leave. They said no. They'd assumed he'd gone back to his room. Voss checked their financial records. No unusual transactions. No large debts. She checked their backgrounds. No criminal records. They didn't fit the profile of suspects. She turned her attention to the casino itself. The Stardust had a reputation. In the 1970s and 80s, it had been tied to organized crime. The mob had skimmed millions from the casino's profits. By 1993, the mob's influence had waned. Federal investigations had dismantled most of the old networks. The casino was under new management, but old habits die hard. Voss wondered if there were still people at the Stardust with connections to the underworld. She contacted the FBI's organized crime unit. They provided her with a list of known associates who'd worked at the Stardust in the past. Most were dead or in prison. A few were still in Las Vegas. Voss tracked them down. She interviewed them. They all denied knowing anything about Michael Brennan. She hit another dead end. She reviewed the security footage again. She focused on the moments before Michael disappeared. She watched him cash out at the cashier. She watched him walk through the lobby. She noticed something. As Michael approached the exit, another man entered the frame. He was walking in the opposite direction, toward the casino floor. The man was in his 30s, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. His face was partially obscured by the camera angle. Voss froze the frame. She enhanced the image as much as the technology allowed. The man's features were blurry, indistinct, but there was something about his posture, his gait. He seemed purposeful. Voss watched the footage again. The man passed Michael. They didn't appear to interact. The man continued into the casino. Michael continued toward the exit. Voss tried to track the man through other cameras. She found him briefly on the casino floor. Then he disappeared. She couldn't identify him. She showed the footage to the Stardust security team. No one recognized the man. She showed it to Michael's co-workers. They didn't recognize him either. Voss added the unidentified man to her list of persons of interest. But without a name, without a face, he was just another ghost in the machine. October arrived. The case was 2 months old. The leads had dried up. The tips had stopped coming. Voss's superiors suggested she move on to other cases. Resources were limited. There were other crimes, other victims. But Voss couldn't let go. She kept the file on her desk. She kept reviewing the footage. She drove out to the desert one afternoon. She stood on the side of Highway 95, looking out at the empty landscape. The desert was vast. It could hide anything. She thought about Michael, a young man with his whole life ahead of him, a man who'd come to Las Vegas for a weekend of fun. And now he was gone. Voss returned to the city. She walked the strip at night. She watched the tourists, the gamblers, the dreamers. Las Vegas was a city of illusions. But somewhere beneath the surface, there was truth. She just had to find it. By the end of 1993, the Michael Brennan case had gone cold. Detective Voss had exhausted every lead. She'd interviewed everyone she could find. She'd reviewed every piece of evidence. She'd walked every inch of the Stardust. And she'd found nothing. The case remained open, but it was no longer active. Voss moved on to other investigations, homicides, assaults, robberies. The work never stopped. But she never forgot Michael. His file sat in a cabinet in the cold case room. His photo stared out from the folder. A young man with short brown hair and a hopeful smile. Sarah stopped calling after 6 months. The pain was too much. She needed to move forward. She moved to Portland. She started over. Michael's parents returned to Tacoma. They held a memorial service even though there was no body. They needed closure even if it was incomplete. His co-workers left the software company. The trip to Las Vegas had changed them. They couldn't look at each other without thinking of Michael. The Stardust continued operating. The casino floor buzzed with activity. The slot machines rang. The dealers shuffled cards. Life went on. But in the quiet moments, in the early morning hours when the casino was nearly empty, the security guards sometimes thought about the man who'd disappeared. They checked the footage. They walked the exits. They wondered. Years passed. Detective Voss retired in 2001. She'd spent 23 years with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. She'd solved dozens of cases. But Michael Brennan's disappearance haunted her. She kept a copy of his file at home. Sometimes late at night she'd open it. She'd look at his photo. She'd read the reports. She'd wonder what she'd missed. The Stardust closed in 2006. The casino had been losing money for years. The new mega resorts had drawn away the crowds. The building was demolished in 2007. Implosion. Controlled explosives brought down the towers in a matter of seconds. Thousands of people gathered to watch. They cheered as the structure collapsed into a cloud of dust. The stardust was gone. Another piece of old Vegas erased, and with it, any physical evidence that might have remained. The case file was transferred to the Cold Case Unit. It joined hundreds of others, unsolved disappearances, unsolved murders, the forgotten and the lost. Michael Brennan became a statistic, a name in a database, a mystery without an answer. But time has a way of revealing secrets. Technology advances. Old evidence can be re-examined with new tools. Old footage can be enhanced with new software. In 2023, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department launched a cold case initiative. They partnered with a tech company specializing in AI-driven image enhancement. The goal was simple: take old security footage and make it clearer. Identify faces. Identify details. Michael Brennan's case was selected for review. Detective Marcus Chen was assigned to the case. He was 34, a rising star in the department. He'd grown up in Las Vegas. He knew the city's history. He'd heard about the Michael Brennan case. It was legendary among detectives, the man who vanished from a casino. Chen opened the file. He read the reports. He studied the evidence. Then he requested the original security footage. The tapes had been digitized years earlier. The quality was poor, but they were intact. Chen uploaded the footage to the AI enhancement software. The program analyzed each frame, filling in missing details, sharpening edges, clarifying faces. It took weeks. The software processed thousands of frames. And then it found something, a face, a detail, a moment that had been invisible in 1993. Chen stared at the screen. His pulse quickened. He called his supervisor. He showed her the enhanced footage. She stared at it. She didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said, "We need to reopen this case." The enhanced footage changed everything. Detective Chen isolated the frames, showing Michael Brennan near the exit. The AI software had clarified details that had been lost in the original recording, and there in the background was the man in the dark jacket. In 1993, his face had been a blur, but now, with the enhancement, his features were visible. Chen ran the image through facial recognition software. The system searched databases of known offenders, missing persons, and public records. It found a match. The man's name was Vincent Corelli, 47 years old in 1993. He'd worked at the Stardust as a pit boss from 1989 to 1995. Chen pulled Corelli's employment records. He'd been on duty the night Michael disappeared. Chen pulled Corelli's background. He had a criminal record: assault in 1987, fraud in 1991. He'd served 18 months in prison. After leaving the Stardust, Corelli had moved to Arizona. He'd worked at several casinos there. He'd been fired from 2 for suspected theft. In 2003, he'd been arrested for embezzlement. He'd served 5 years. He was released in 2008. He'd kept a low profile since then. Chen located Corelli's current address. He was living in Tucson, Arizona. Chen contacted the Tucson Police Department. He requested assistance in bringing Corelli in for questioning. 2 days later, Corelli was sitting in an interrogation room in Las Vegas. He was 67 now. Gray hair, lined face, tired eyes. He looked like a man who'd lived a hard life. Chen entered the room. He introduced himself. He explained why Corelli had been brought in. Corelli said nothing. Chen showed him the enhanced footage. He pointed to Corelli's face. "That's you," Chen said. "August 13th, 1993, the Stardust. You were there when Michael Brennan disappeared?" Corelli stared at the screen. His expression didn't change. "I worked there," he said. "I was there a lot of nights." "Do you remember Michael Brennan?" Chen asked. Corelli shook his head. "I don't remember every customer." Chen showed him Michael's photo. "He disappeared that night. He was last seen near the exit. You were walking past him." Corelli looked at the photo. "I don't remember him." Chen leaned forward. "We have footage of you following him." Corelli's eyes narrowed. "I wasn't following anyone." Chen played more footage. The enhanced images showed Corelli moving through the casino. He appeared on multiple cameras. He was always a few steps behind Michael. "You were tracking him," Chen said. Corelli didn't respond. Chen changed tactics. "Tell me about your job. What did a pit boss do?" Corelli shrugged. "Watched the tables. Made sure the dealers were doing their jobs. Made sure the customers weren't cheating. Did you ever deal with problem customers?" "Sometimes." "What did you do with them?" "Escorted them out. Called security." "Did you ever do anything else?" Corelli's jaw tightened. "What are you asking?" Chen leaned back. "I'm asking if you ever hurt anyone." Corelli stood up. "I want a lawyer." The interview ended. Chen knew he didn't have enough for an arrest. The footage showed Corelli near Michael, but it didn't prove he'd done anything. He needed more. He dug deeper into Corelli's past. He contacted former co-workers at the Stardust. Most didn't remember him. A few did. One former dealer, a woman named Rita Gomez, agreed to meet Chen. She was in her 60s now, retired, living in Henderson. She invited Chen to her home. They sat in her living room. She offered him coffee. He accepted. "I remember Vincent," she said. "He was a pit boss when I worked there. Late 80s, early 90s. "What was he like?" Chen asked. Rita hesitated. "He was intense. He took his job seriously. Maybe too seriously. Did he ever get in trouble?" "Not officially, but there were rumors." "What kind of rumors?" Rita looked uncomfortable. "That he had connections. That he did favors for certain people." "What kind of favors?" "I don't know." "I never asked. You didn't ask questions back then." Chen showed her the enhanced footage. "Do you recognize this man?" Rita looked at the screen. "That's Michael Brennan, the man who disappeared. Do you remember him?" "I remember the case. Everyone talked about it. It was all over the news." "Do you remember seeing him that night?" Rita shook her head. "I wasn't working that night." Chen showed her the footage of Corelli. "Do you think Vincent could have been involved?" Rita was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, but if someone told him to do something, he'd do it." "Who would tell him?" "I don't know." But the Stardust had a lot of secrets. Chen thanked her and left. He returned to the station. He reviewed the case file again. He looked for connections, for patterns, and then he found something. In the original investigation, Detective Voss had noted that Michael had won $200 at blackjack. She'd noted the time, 10:30 p.m. Chen pulled the casino's records from that night. He found the table where Michael had played. He found the dealer's name. The dealer was Vincent Corelli. Chen's pulse quickened. Corelli had been dealing to Michael. He'd watched Michael win. He'd seen Michael cash out, and then he'd followed him. Chen had his connection. He brought Corelli back in. This time Corelli's lawyer was present. Chen laid out the evidence, the footage, the employment records, the testimony from Rita Gomez. "You dealt to Michael Brennan," Chen said. "You watched him win. You followed him. And then he disappeared." Corelli's lawyer started to object, but Corelli raised his hand. "I want to make a deal," Corelli said. Chen leaned forward. "Tell me what happened." Corelli took a deep breath. "I didn't kill him." "Then what did you do?" Corelli looked at his lawyer. The lawyer nodded. "I was told to watch him," Corelli said. "Someone said he was counting cards. They wanted him dealt with." "Who told you?" "I don't remember. It was 30 years ago." "What does dealt with mean?" Corelli hesitated. "Scared, roughed up. Sent a message." "Did you do that?" "I followed him. I was going to talk to him outside. But what?" Corelli's voice dropped. "Someone else got to him first." Chen's blood ran cold. "Who?" "I don't know. I saw him leave. I followed. But when I got outside, there was a car, a black sedan. 2 men. They grabbed him. They put him in the car. They drove away." "And you didn't report it?" Corelli looked down. "I couldn't. If I said anything, I'd be next." "Do you know who the men were?" "No. But they weren't casino security. They were professionals." Chen stared at him. "You let them take him." Corelli nodded. "I'm sorry, I've lived with it for 30 years. Chen ended the interview. He had a confession, but it wasn't enough. He needed to find the men in the black sedan. He needed to find Michael Brennan. Detective Chen didn't sleep that night. Corelli's confession had opened a door, but it led into darkness. 2 men, a black sedan, professionals. In 1993, that could have meant mob. It could have meant enforcers. It could have meant people who knew how to make someone disappear. Chen contacted the FBI's organized crime unit. He explained the case. He asked for access to their files on Las Vegas operations in the early 1990s. The FBI agent assigned to assist him was named Rebecca Torres. She'd spent 15 years investigating organized crime in Nevada. She reviewed Chen's evidence. She listened to the recording of Corelli's confession. If Corelli's telling the truth, Torres said, then Michael Brennan was taken by contractors, people hired to handle problems quietly. Can we identify them? Chen asked. Torres pulled up old surveillance reports. In 1993, there were several known operators in Las Vegas. Most worked for the remnants of the old families. They did collections, intimidation, disposal. Disposal? Torres nodded. Bodies. The desert is full of them. Chen felt a chill. How do we find out which ones took Michael? Torres searched her database. She cross-referenced dates, locations, known associates, and she found something. August 1993, she said. 2 men were under surveillance, Frank Delano and Marcus Ruiz. They worked for a loan shark named Sal Giordano. They were suspected in multiple disappearances. Are they still alive? Torres checked. Delano died in 1998. Car accident. Ruiz is in prison. He's serving life for murder. Unrelated case. Can we talk to him? We can try. 2 days later, Chen and Torres sat across from Marcus Ruiz in a maximum security prison in Ely, Nevada. Ruiz was 71. Grey beard, scarred hands, eyes that had seen too much. Chen explained why they were there. He showed Ruiz the enhanced footage of Michael Brennan. Do you recognize him? Chen asked. Ruiz stared at the screen. He didn't speak for a long time. I'm not admitting to anything, he finally said. You're already serving life, Torres said. This can't hurt you, but it can give a family closure. Ruiz looked at her. Why should I care? Because you're going to die in here, Chen said. And maybe just once you can do something that matters. Ruiz was quiet. Then he nodded slowly. I remember him, he said. The kid from Seattle. We picked him up outside the Stardust. Chen's heart pounded. Why? Orders. Sal said the kid had seen something he shouldn't have, said he needed to disappear. What did he see? I don't know. Sal didn't tell us. We just did the job. What did you do with him? Ruiz looked down. We drove him out to the desert. Red Rock Canyon. There's a place out there off the main road, deep ravine. We took care of it. Chen felt sick. Where exactly? Ruiz described the location. A remote area, miles from any trail. Is he still there? Chen asked. Unless the coyotes got him, Ruiz said. It's been 30 years. Chen and Torres left the prison. They contacted the Clark County Search and Rescue Team. 3 days later, a team of forensic anthropologists and search dogs arrived at Red Rock Canyon. They hiked into the desert. The sun was brutal. The landscape was unforgiving. They found the ravine Ruiz had described. It was deep, hidden by rocks and scrub brush. The dogs alerted. The team descended carefully. At the bottom, partially buried in sand and debris, they found bones, human bones. The remains were carefully excavated. They were transported to the coroner's office. DNA testing took 2 weeks. The results came back positive. The remains were Michael Brennan. Chen called Sarah. She was 56 now, living in Portland, remarried. She'd built a new life. But she'd never forgotten Michael. When Chen told her they'd found him, she cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. I always knew, she said. I knew he didn't just leave. I knew something happened. I'm sorry it took so long, Chen said. Thank you, she said. Thank you for not giving up. Chen contacted Michael's family. His parents had both passed away, but his brother and sister were still alive. They flew to Las Vegas. They identified personal effects found with the remains. They watch, a wallet, a key chain. They held a funeral. A real one this time, with a body to bury. Michael Brennan was laid to rest in Tacoma next to his parents. Vincent Corelli was charged as an accessory. He pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 10 years. Marcus Ruiz received no additional charges. He was already serving life, but his cooperation was noted in his file. The case was officially closed. Detective Chen stood in his office, looking at Michael's photo. A young man with short brown hair and a hopeful smile. He thought about the city. Las Vegas, the city of illusions. For 30 years the illusion had held. Michael Brennan had simply vanished. No trace, no explanation. But beneath the neon and the noise, the truth had been waiting. It always is. Chen closed the file. He placed it in the archive. Another case solved, another family given closure. But the desert keeps its secrets. And Las Vegas keeps spinning. The lights never stop flashing. The slot machines never stop ringing. And somewhere in the shadows between the brightness, other mysteries wait, other truths buried beneath the sand. Michael Brennan's story is over. But the city's story never ends. It's a place where people come to dream, to win, to lose, to disappear. And sometimes, if you look closely enough, if you wait long enough, the truth emerges. Not always the truth we want, but the truth we need. Michael Brennan came to Las Vegas for a weekend. He never left. But now finally he's home.